All right, welcome everybody to our webinar. My name is LARA DEUTSCH. I am one of the co-hosts of this event with my wonderful colleagues, Dr. Amy HILLIS from York University and Dr. Cindy THONG from Acadia University. Before we begin, I would just like to start with a land acknowledgement. Many of us have been reflecting on the implications of the tools we use to do our online work, both as they relate to our pedagogy and in many other ways. Since we often rely on the shared space of Zoom, which you might consider a space without a place, we'd like to anchor this apparent placelessness in the land by sharing a brief acknowledgement of the land where Zoom is headquartered in San Jose, California. We acknowledge both our virtual presence and our use of resources drawn from session 274 territory, part of the traditional territories of the Ohlone, which span from the coast of San Francisco through Monterey Bay to the lower Salinas Valley. Ohlone is a collective of around 50 separate tribes with related languages that have been living in the Bay Area for over 10,000 years. The current Muwekma Ohlone tribe is made up of all surviving indigenous lineages in the San Francisco Bay Area, and they continue to live and work in this territory today. So, welcome to our conference, Where Can I Go with a Music Degree? We are so thrilled to have everybody here with us. The response to this question, this topic, has been overwhelming, and it's something that the three of us who have put this event together are very, very passionate about, and we can't wait to answer this question over the course of the next couple of days. So I want to thank you all for being here. We have over 525 people registered from across Canada, even actually the US and Europe. So we're so excited to hear from you and also to hear your questions for our wonderful panelists and speakers. A couple of housekeeping things. So this is a webinar format, which means the cameras will only be on for our panelists and our hosts. However, the chat is open. If you want to give your support or just interact with other participants, you can. And there's also a question and answer Q&A section. So the chat will not be monitored through the course of any of the sessions over the weekend, but the Q&A will be. So if something comes up that you want to ask one of the panelists, please just feel free to enter in the Q&A section your question, and if it's directed at anybody. And there will be about 20 minutes of Q&A at the end of the session where we will look at that bank of questions and ask our panelists for their wisdom. Otherwise, you can always check out our website, wherecanigowithmusic.com. That has all the details about our speakers, links to their websites, their projects, as well as the schedule for the whole weekend. So without further ado, I would love to start introducing our wonderful panelists. A quick note to say that one of our panelists, Aria Umezawa, fortunately had a childcare emergency, so she will not be joining us this morning. We will miss her, but thankfully we have three other very, very stellar panelists. So I'll start by introducing Dr. Carson Becke, who you will see shortly on screen. Hey there, Carson. So Carson is the founder and artistic coordinator of Pontiac Enchanté, which is a festival, basically artistic organization based in the Gatineau Hills. He wears many amazing hats: performer, musicologist, composer, collaborative pianist, and he is, like all of our panelists, an incredible innovator. So Carson actually gave a TED Talk in November 2020 about concert organizations and how they need to play a bigger part in helping our industry to become more environmentally sustainable, which is something that I know is near and dear to many of us. Carson, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for doing this. This is really exciting.
We are so pumped to have you. I'm going to also introduce our next panelist, Brandyn Lewis, who is the co-founder and artistic director of an orchestra called Ensemble Obiora. Brandyn was actually named a change maker in 2023 by CBC, so congratulations on that. And his ensemble has a mission of increasing representation on the classical music scene and to program unfamiliar works by composers of color whose contributions have gone unnoticed. Thanks so much for being here, Brandyn.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
And finally, we have the wonderful Janna Saylor, who is the founder and artistic director of the Allegra Chamber Orchestra, and also a very prolific violinist and conductor. Allegra is an ensemble dedicated to creating opportunities for women and minorities in the music industry with a mandate of social action through music. So not only are they promoting women composers and women performers, they're also working within the community to create opportunities for people who maybe wouldn't have had them otherwise. Janna is also the 2023 winner of Orchestra Canada's Betty Webster Award, which is awarded to people who have done amazing work with arts-based social initiatives, as Janna has. She is incredible. So Janna, thank you also for being here.
Thanks for having me. Such a pleasure.
I'm really excited about this panel of guests we have because they are all very much, as I said, change makers, innovators. They're sort of questioning the status quo of what's happening in the classical music industry and creating a space for things to change with the times and for the arts to become more sustainable. So thank you all for that incredible work. As we know, the idea behind this conference is to reflect on these many different paths that we can take as musicians with a music degree. And I know that when I was in school, there was sort of, a couple of paths that were prioritized. For me as a flutist, it was generally, you go for an orchestral job. And that's really your only option for a sustainable career. And that's a great option, but it is only one of many. And one of the things that I wish that I had learned in music school was just that there is this wealth of paths that we can take and that we can create for ourselves. So what I want to start off by asking you in this very open question, the conversation of what I wish I learned in music school, is what is the most important thing that you didn't learn when you were in school? So if I can ask you each to reflect on that, we'll start with Carson. Carson, what would you say is the number one thing that you didn't learn in music school that you wish you had?
So, I had a few answers for this when I was thinking about this, and I wanted to make sure that I had a few just in case the ones that I wanted to say got taken first. And actually, you took the very first one, which was the idea that there are actually like many, many ways that this can go. That was not at all the atmosphere or the attitude that was kind of offered to me by the institution that I studied at in my bachelor's degree. So with that one off the board, the next one that I would go to, and I think this is probably quite particular to me as a pianist, but the idea that collaborations and relationships and working with people is probably the thing that will make or break your ability to have a career as a musician. So that would be my thing.
So just like networking, being able to make long-term relationships, that sort of thing is what is key in order to have a sustainable career? In
all senses, like collaborate, like literally like playing with other people, like not just sitting in a small room by yourself with this like massive instrument and just thinking that what you really need to do is just like play it as much as you can all day and not talk to people.
Right.
Like collaboratively thinking about what music making means in groups, thinking about how you can present concerts with others. Just like really like thinking about music as a series of relationships with people. That's the whole point.
So. And I imagine too, as a pianist in particular, that's especially relevant because your instrument is a lot more solitary than, say, a flute player or a violinist or a bassist. Like you really can just sit alone in a room.
It's kind of weird because it is in one way the most solitary instrument, but in other ways by far the most flexible collaborative instrument out there. I can play, like I have a deep knowledge of every instrumental repertoire. I can play with every voice type. Like you can do everything as a pianist, but somehow you're encouraged to do as little as possible and really just do that one fine line of solo piano music.
Right.
I mean, you can really do so many things as a pianist, but all of that hinges on your ability to collaborate with people.
Right. And would you say that the sort of the solo piano track was the one that was pushed the most in
Absolutely.
Your education?
Yeah, I know. I mean, there was, I don't want to speak badly of places and situations, but yeah, there was this idea that like if you were not a solo pianist, you were in some way doing other things because you weren't good enough to be that.
Right.
I would argue that if you're a good collaborative pianist, if you're a good solo pianist, you might be good enough to play with others. I would like fully switch that narrative, but yeah.
Right, which is a really interesting mentality to go through school with, because it can be quite damaging, actually, this feeling of not being good enough to work with others, like to always be kind of trying to get better and better and better so that you reach that point when realistically that's the point we all want to start at, because that's the point of music making. I think that's a great point. I'm going to jump over to Janna. What would you say number one thing that you didn't learn in school that you wish you had?
Yeah, well, just everything Carson said, and in addition, your mad skills on your instrument are not enough. You also have to be an entrepreneur. You have to be able to promote yourself. You have to be able to talk about what you do in an articulate way, and you have to be able to make opportunities for yourself, and think of yourself, as a business person, and what you do in some ways as a product in a weird way, because so one thing that I did, kind of early on, and when I was in grad school and kind of starting on this path, is I went to a lot of business seminars, and I had a couple of small little projects on the side. I had a house concert series and a couple other things like that I was doing, and I had no idea how to run them, how to grow them, how to network. And so and I had no idea what I was doing at these conferences either, but I was there to learn, from the best of the best that were very successful in their fields, that were very different from mine, but also there were things there that I could take and adapt and figure out in kind of my path as a creative entrepreneur. And even when I did have positions there, with a conservatory or an orchestra, there were still things that I worked on the side in order to build my skills and kind of create what I needed to create, and put myself out into the world the way I wanted to.
Right. So, but a lot of that from the sounds of it then was very, very self-directed. Like you weren't getting necessarily those skills, or I know in my case anyways, when we were at school, like there was always sort of a class you could take, for example, but it wasn't part of the mandatory curriculum, and it wasn't something that everyone did. And it was only sort of, one semester. Was that the case in your experience as well?
Yeah, I mean, and at UBC, I don't even think that was an option. Yeah, it was very much self-directed, and very much like kind of born out of this determination that I needed to find ways to create the things that I had in my mind, and I had no idea how to go about it. Right. And how to make it sustainable, and how to create those, in some ways, like the connections that Carson was talking about, that were maybe outside of the music world, that would actually be able to bring my vision to life. Like now I run an orchestra and a concert series, on a much larger scale than it was when I first started out. And a lot of it was just a big experiment, and it still is. And it's a really complex industry that keeps evolving. And I think that we have to be willing to learn and to adapt, and to constantly be looking for those opportunities to learn from other industries as well.
Yes. Yeah, because it's I think we're past the time in our world where it's just artist to be an artist. That's not the reality of our industry, and that's okay. There's still many opportunities that can be created, but of course too, after the pandemic, I'm sure you'll all agree, we've had to kind of develop a lot of new skills that none of us figured we'd have to. Like, how do you be your own sound tech? How do you market things? How do you take good video? How do you market yourself? How do you use social media? Like there's all these really big questions, which we will, we're going to get into some of these over the course of the weekend. But first I'm going to jump over to Brandyn. Same question for you. And I imagine as a double bass player, you probably had a similar experience where it's like orchestra that's it, So for you, what is the thing that you wish, that you had learned when you were in music school?
Well, see, that's it. As a double bassist, I know that I'm not going to have a big solo career compared to like a violinist or a pianist, for example. It is possible, but it's more rare. And so for sure, orchestra auditions was something that was really on my mind. And we all poured so much time and dedication into our talents. But I would say, and there's so many different directions I could go with this, and I echo so many of the sentiments that Carson and Janna brought up. But I would say, understanding life as a freelancer and all the complexities, in terms of like really how to market yourself, how to go after different opportunities, different administrative tasks that aren't really taught when you're in performance, for example. It's like you have to go to do a separate degree And so I was not someone who was had an entrepreneurial mind because I was so focused on being creative and a musician.
Right.
And so now I find myself as one of the leaders of Ensemble Obiora, and it's like I'm having to do so much admin and logistics of like I find myself completely lost at times. And so yeah, it's been a huge learning curve. And I remember taking a course called Music as a Business in undergrad. And the professor was exceptional and a really great prof, but it always felt like that course was tailored towards pop musicians in a way.
Yeah.
And it didn't really prepare classical musicians. I mean, you'll have a mix of jazz and classical, of course, but I didn't really get a lot out of that course that I could apply to my career now.
Right.
And so I felt like that was a missed opportunity in a way.
Right. So what I'm really getting from a lot of you is that there was a lot of self-directed learning that had to happen. So my question, and feel free to kind of to jump in, whoever wants to jump in first, is, at what point after graduation did you realize, okay, I need to develop some other skills, and how did you even start going about doing that? Like what was the first step? Because I know that a lot of us kind of learn on the job and less by going to do, say, like an MBA or, going to business school or taking some sort of like accounting class, at what point did you say to yourself, okay, like the music is not enough, and how do I take this next step? Carson, I see your hand up.
I mastered the raise hand function. That's something else you learn at music school. I like, does the day after graduation, is that like an acceptable response to that?
Absolutely.
So I studied at the Royal Academy of Music in London. That was where my undergraduate degree happened. And so after graduation, I was just living in London, which was both like a great place and a bad place to be as a musician trying to make a living, because like it's a huge city, massive metropolitan area. It's like by just sheer numbers of musicians and concerts happening like per day, it's the most active musical city in the world. Like it's crazy. Everything happens there. Maybe not so much now, RIP European Union, but at least then it was a great place. But also, so you finish your degree and then you're just this like guy that can play like some pieces by Schumann like relatively well, in like a place where hundreds of people, thousands of people can do that better than you, and they were always able to do that better than you, and it just kind of immediately puts the sort of perspective light on what you're doing. It's like, okay, right, this is not going to work. Like there's no realistic way that this is going to be a thing. So for me, it was like immediately that was when I started thinking, how can I, what roads do I need to go down here? And also, what can I do that's actually interesting? Because I was already starting to find just practicing a lot not very interesting. So
right. And were you kind of just using the internet? Like what were your tools and resources? How did you go about developing those skills and other interests?
Yeah, no, actually, I don't feel like the internet was a major source of that.
Google let you down this time.
Thanks for tapping into my age, Lara. That's really nice. I don't think the internet was. Actually, it was more just talking to people that I found interesting.
Okay.
Just sort of like having conversations and sort of thinking, okay, so this person, I find this person interesting. What they did in their pathways look nothing like my pathways. How did they get into those situations? So that was maybe the advantage of London, was that I was just surrounded by so many people doing so many different things. But it made me realize that, like, yeah, this the way that I had done things and that I was thinking things would be going was not at all a path that I was interested in, because I realized the result of that was also not something I wanted.
Right.
So yeah.
So yeah, I know that there's something called the 50 coffees rule, where you just, when you're trying to start something new or you're trying to broaden your horizons, you just ask 50 people for a coffee and see where it leads you, see what connections you make. Some of them might be totally useless, but some of them also might be life-changing. That kind of sounds like your strategy, which has clearly paid off really well for you, Carson. What about you, Brandyn and Janna? Like, at what point did you realize, okay, I need to I need to branch out.
Yeah, I can jump in. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Brandon.
No, go. You're all
Um,
started. Go ahead.
So I was really very fortunate to I started working playing with professional orchestras when I was in grad school, and landed what I thought was kind of my dream job with the Vancouver Opera, which is a wonderful company, and I had some wonderful seasons with them. And then but early on in that, I realized that. This something wasn't quite right. I began to feel I know a little bit stifled, a little bit like I'd had to kind of check my brain at the door in a little bit in a few ways in that, you know, as a violinist, you're and I love my instrument and I adore the orchestra, but I did feel like a little bit like a lemming, you know, in a large section, you know, especially being in the pit. I do love pit work, but when you very rarely see the light of day, you know, there were things like that that I really felt a little bit stifled creatively, and like I wasn't using my skills to the extent that I'd been trained to. And so I started looking for ways to do some of the repertoire that I was passionate about. And I've always had kind of a social mandate, and realizing that, you know, the power of music was so impactful in my life, and that could have potential impacts on other people in a similar way or more so. And so I started just in a very small scale. I think I mentioned earlier, doing just house concerts and kind of getting my feet wet with producing and programming that way, and bringing on folks that I loved to work with and that had similar visions. And, you know, and we did a variety of different things repertoire wise that we could explore. And then also partnering with different organizations, charitable organizations, world music organizations. And so, you know, when I look back at some of that programming and some of the materials, it's really cringy, but it was all part of the all part of the process. And, you know, some of those building that confidence, I think, in myself, and in building my network, and knowing that you know, I was creating things that there was an appetite for, that people were interested in. And I think, you know, if I hadn't had that kind of uncomfortable realization of being like, you know what, I don't think I fully fit in you know, this traditional setting that I had strived for so long to be a part of. You know, I think those are uncomfortable realizations are when we grow, and what propels us forward and gives us, it's good information. It's good information about ourselves and where possibly we're supposed to be.
Well, and I think that I'm really glad that you said that, because I know for me, and also for me and Cindy, it's that realization of, you know, you write a personal statement to get into undergrad at 18, and you write another one to get into master's at 22. And it's so funny now, you know, like 10 years later, how much your goals actually change, because being in the real world teaches you those values, right? Like, you just don't necessarily know that you're missing, say, that creative spark or that you know, social action spark, because you're sort of pushed towards this one path, which is what you're told you want, but maybe you don't even realize that you do or don't, you know? So this is why at the end of the session, for everybody who's watching, we are going to ask everybody, you know, what is your definition of success, and has it changed since you were, you know, 18 or when you were in music school? Because I think it is important that we ask ourselves those questions, like, you know, what about music do I like? Why do I do this? What is the driver? You know, is it that I just want to play in an ensemble, or is it that I want to create social change? All the things are valid, but it's important to be able to ask yourself those questions, which is not something I think that happens a lot in a school setting, or at least didn't when I was there. So Brandon, I'd be sort of curious with you as well. I mean, similar question, you know, playing in the double bass section of an orchestra, obviously lots of fun, amazing repertoire, but again, creative control is not something you get a ton of, I would imagine. So for you, you know, when did you have that moment of like, I'm going to start my own orchestra? Like, that's a huge, that's a huge undertaking. And what was the first step there?
Yeah, so actually that idea to start an orchestra didn't solely come from me, because I was I would have been content just playing an orchestra. I was very happy, like you said, getting to play amazing repertoire and traveling. Like I was like, I'm all set,
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I met Alison Mijon, who is the executive director of Ensemble Obiora, did things like start to change because she had a very entrepreneurial mind. She always wanted to run her own business. And so um, it just so happened that during the pandemic, we had time to create. And so she had the idea, or I guess the spark came from the first webinar that Amy had invited me to. The idea came from there in a way, and we were able to pull together some musicians and had the idea of increasing diversity in classical music repertoire. And yeah, it's something that started. We, like Janna, didn't think it was gonna grow to be such a huge endeavor and business. Um, and it wasn't until actually starting those the process of developing the ensemble that I realized, okay, I really need to learn different skills, um, and also I saw, I was always told from a young age that I should use my talents to help other people,
Hmm.
and I didn't know what that meant, early on, because it it can be a very egocentric field, like we're by ourselves practicing a lot and we're trying to develop our skills and win auditions, and there's a lot of competition, right? But I think with Obiora, I'm seeing that, I have a different purpose now, and so I should help um, yeah, younger generations or people that don't really see themselves in classical music to kind of fit in and see all the wonderful possibilities.
Right.
And so, yeah, my perspective has really changed since starting this important work.
Just in the sense of, so to summarize, kind of that like very internally focused training to all of a sudden broadening a bit to realize like music has this social purpose and this ability to connect people and for you to be, a role model.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly, I mean, that's what the work that you're doing is exactly that, and it's amazing for people to be able to see themselves represented on that stage. And I know how much work goes into a project like this, so so kudos for that. And what was coming to mind as you were saying that too is, of course, and Carson talks about this too with collaborations with other people, is that we can often rely on some of their skills. If you have a business partner who has, say, a business degree or marketing or whatever, we can kind of work in teams to build our projects with those people based on their strengths. But I'd be curious to ask the three of you, what would you say are kind of the top three skills that you need as a musician for a sustainable career in music? Like if you can pick a concrete three, whether that's like ability to network or ability to talk to audiences or accounting knowledge or what have you. I know for me, like I wish I had learned how to do my taxes when I was in school. That was freelance,
Yes.
self-employed taxes, right? It's like there needs to be a whole on that. But I'll jump back to Carson to start. Carson, what would you say if you could sort of summarize those top three skills that you really need to keep sustaining your career? What would they be?
Well, I think there's skills that are that are applicable to hopefully the profession as a whole, and then there's skills that are like applicable to pianists. So I'll try and like dip into both pots.
Yeah.
But I'd say that a universal is time management, especially as a freelancer. It's so easy to not properly allocate your time and then end up in a situation where you just have not figured out how to get all your stuff done, because the realistic situation when you're a freelancer is that you just have a limited number of hours in a day to get things done, and sort of unlimited tasks that have to fill those very limited spaces. So time management is like top for me. This I think this is a pianist thing, but I think it applies to other instruments as well. Like actually learning how to practice as little as possible. Like do the work, do it super well, but what do you actually have to do? Like how much time do you really need to spend in a small room by yourself? And like piano players are like chronic over practicers. We spend way too long doing that. And like really, yeah, figuring out how can I spend as little time doing this as possible. And so I guess going along with that is like this, like being able to learn music quickly so that you can spend your time doing other things because you need to.
Right. So practice efficiency. You're told to practice, but not necessarily how to best do that. Yeah.
And then, yeah, number 3, this is kind of my theme, but like being able to forge like meaningful relationships with people. Mm-hmm. Like and also like really like forming compassionate and deep relationships with people too. Like there's nothing worse than somebody reaching out to you just because they need one thing from you, but you can tell that they're not interested in anything else. They just want to get their thing and leave. Like transactional relationships in the music industry just don't work. Right. So like really, yeah, like making yourself open to making many relationships and making sure those are strong and deep relationships.
Which ties back into time management also, right? Like nurturing
all that does, yeah.
nurturing those relationships is work, but it's like, I mean, that's, I think, a metaphor for real life as well, outside of music, is, you know, the more time that you genuinely put into caring about others, the more that relationship will grow into something beautiful. But like you said, that, you know, involves sometimes like putting reminders on your phone to check in with whomever. You know, I checked in with you a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to check in again, see how you're doing, maybe follow up on something, but being really proactive about that, that kind of thing, like just making sure that it's in your schedule, which sounds funny. It is.
Just a further to that last point, this is advice that I got years ago that I've just found so like good, and not in like a kind of mercenary way, but just like I just feel like it's very good advice. Which was make sure that like the first time you have coffee with somebody, you don't need something specific from them. Mm-hmm. That you just build relationships for the sake of building relationships. And then eventually you'll probably need something from that person, but you're not like contacting them because you're like, can I get this from you right now? Like that's not at all a great way to start a relationship with somebody.
Right. I think these are fantastic points. Janna, I'm sure we're gonna have a ton of overlap on these top 3, but Janna, do you have a different 3 or 1 or 2 that you would add to this list of must-haves?
Yeah. I mean, all excellent points, and still things that I'm striving to do, Carson, in my life for sure. But so I was scribbling down a few notes here. So I think probably adaptability, being like building that adaptability and resilience within yourself as a person, like personal development, I think is a huge part of being a successful musician, but then being willing to do things other than perhaps what you initially set out to do, and being willing to develop those skills, that skill set, you know, in order to do that. And I know certainly I've had to do that many times, and that it's still happening in so many areas of my life, even you know, even just like the small things that we're willing to grow and adapt and, you know, develop. You know, for me, it's all the social media stuff. I have to be willing to figure out how to promote myself better in these ever-evolving platforms. So something even kind of small like that's impactful to being able to like build out your technique or skill set in another way has been a big part of my journey. Also, professionalism. It sounds silly to even say it, but you know, making sure that you know, when I first started freelancing, I was very fortunate to have a contractor that was kind of almost like a father figure that really, you know, saw that I had things to contribute to the scene. And he said, you know, every gig is your favorite gig. Every is your best gig you're building, and you're building your skills, you're building your reputation, and so you show up for every gig, and no matter what it is, how big or small, and present yourself really as well as you can. You dress well, you come as prepared as possible. You treat other people with the respect that you would want to be treated with. And I saw I was part of a wonderful panel with a really prominent concert producer who talked about the silent hands that propel your career forward, that just like maybe they're not talking to you, but someone says, oh yeah, this person is really good, is really reliable, you should definitely hire them, they should definitely be on your roster, and that comes from showing up at every gig, and doing it well, and then you build your own momentum in that way, just in that organic way. And then kind of tying into, I guess, the first thing that I said was that willingness to grow, and willingness to grow from whatever your circumstances are, in whatever way possible, whether that's developing your business skills, or your admin skills, your musical skills, just willingness to do whatever it is that you need to develop, and you need to grow, and look at yourself seriously, and be like, look, am I getting in my own way, or is this something that I can work on, or reach out for support, or take additional training for? Just that willingness to grow. And I think that is, as I touched on earlier, the music industry is so complex and constantly changing, that I think that that's going to become more and more important as we navigate this, because I know musicians with incredible skills, mad technique, but didn't have this piece.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, we're trained very, at least certainly in the classical realm, we're trained to be perfectionists, and people are often commented, like it's often complimented, like, so and so is so good at what they do because they're perfectionists, when really it's a very damaging mindset, because you're expecting yourself to be 100% all the time, but you're not a robot, so you never will be. And there's this incredible fear of making mistakes, and mistakes is what leads to growth, right? If we don't make mistakes, if we don't, do those early things that we look back on and kind of cringe, like, we will never grow. So I think that's a big mindset shift too. I know for me in school was, we get very, honed in on just being absolutely perfect, but it's not possible. So we just end up letting ourselves down. And I want to touch briefly too on what you said. I mean, the music industry is very small. It's a very, very, very small world. So like you said, you always want to be the best version of yourself, which I think we want to do generally in life also. But you're right, like, one or two sort of negative experiences that someone has with you can really follow you around. So I think that's incredibly valuable advice. I'll transfer over to Brandyn for his thoughts. I mean, we've covered a million things, so I'm wondering if you have any others that you would add to your personal top three.
I mean, I think you guys said it all. Those were kind of the top choices, in terms of time management, how to organize yourself, seeing things far in advance, is something that I struggle with still to this day, making sure that giving myself deadlines for things and not leaving things open-ended. So it's in order to be efficient with time. So there's that. Networking, I think you guys all covered it. It's building relationships is one of the key ways to develop as an artist, or as a business person, or as a human in general. We need people as support, and so leaning onto people's skills and building a team is important. When sometimes I want to take on all the world's problems by myself, and
Yeah.
I realize, okay, it's not sustainable, and I'm burning out and just kind of imploding. So using other people. And then lastly, entrepreneurial skills, like everyone said, how to, like, writing grants and doing all the necessary research, building repertoire, like it's such a long work, and yeah, so that's, and having the discipline to go through it all.
Absolutely, which again, bravo to all of you for the amazing work that you're doing, because it does take so much, blood, sweat, and tears, and love, and time, and energy. So we all here at our conference have immense respect for what you're doing. Carson, I saw a hand up. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just to like put a bow on this like part of the conversation. So I've just been making notes, like just a quick point of everything that's been said. So according to this conversation, to be I'll take my hand out. To be a professional musician, you need to be able to get time manage. You need to practice well and efficiently. You need to be social. You have to be adaptable. You have to be professional. You have to be willing to grow. You have to know how to write grants. You have to build repertoire and many other things like that. That is a fully impossible task to ask anybody to do. Like, and like, we're all saying these things, and like all of us are good at some of those things and not good at other things. I think maybe just a final like thing is that you also just have to be very human about this and understand that everybody you're working with is also just trying to do their best, and never expect unreasonable things from others, just as you hope that nobody would expect unreasonable things from you.
Right.
So, yeah, the acceptance of humanity, I think, is also probably a very, very crucial point. So
I also do find it's funny, the people who want an answer from you within 12 hours of sending you an email are often the people who will respond 3 months after you've asked them for something. And it's like, again, that perspective shift of, I think, as Janna said, like, be treated with the same respect that I would treat others, and vice versa. It's the same thing. Like, we all have a lot going on. There's a lot happening. We can't expect people to just drop their lives to do something for us when we realistically couldn't do the same thing for them, you know? So I think that those are all really, really fantastic points. A quick reminder just to our viewers, feel free to put all your questions in the Q&A versus in the chat, because we'll have an easier time managing them for the end. Sorry, go ahead, Carson.
No, and just one other thing to pick up on the whole perfectionism thing. Maybe this is, I don't know if we're going to get into this or not, but just one thing that I wish I'd been, or a mentality that I wish had been sort of instilled in me earlier, was that actually a really good barometer is it good enough? I think that's like a really important thing to know. Is it good enough for what you need to do for this? And if it is, then you can stop. Then you're fine. Because otherwise you just destroy yourself and burn out, and that's not what anybody needs, you or anybody around you. So
totally, yeah, absolutely. Because you're right, we get so hung up in the details. Like, I know for myself, like making social media, for example, for this conference, like, I'm not a graphic designer. Does it look okay? Like, do I have time to spend 8 hours a day on every single post? No. Does it get the information out? Yes. And that's hard, as I always say as a joke, like, hi, my name is Lara and I'm a recovering perfectionist, because 10, 15 years ago, I would have lost sleep over it and stayed up late trying to do it. And now it's like, getting that perspective, I think, is really, really healthy, and choosing to surround yourself with people and colleagues who share those mindsets, people like you, Carson. Like, it's really healthy for me to see other people modeling that behavior. Brandyn, yeah, what's up?
Yeah, so actually, I just saw a great point in the chat by, I believe, Puya. And so, yeah, taking care of the body and health is extremely important. Um, you know, because of, we all find ourselves just fully immersed in our work, whether it's practicing, whether it's the arts administration and all that. I find having time for hobbies outside of music is very important. I for a couple of years now, I've been playing basketball. I've gotten into tennis since last summer, and now taking courses. And I'm trying to do more yoga and just body strengthening. I think those moments give me pause in my active career, and it actually allows me to focus when I do come back to it. And because, like, or else it's just like the mind is constantly going and working. And so, yeah, I think with all of this, especially for the younger students who might be watching here, it's not, don't think you can practice, 6, 8 hours a day, every day, and not expect yourself to get injured. It's not a sustainable lifestyle. It's very important to give the body breaks, and really to be in tune and listen to the body when it's flagging any kind of discomfort, because that's what's going to lead to longevity in the end. I can remember my first year of NYO, which was over 10 years ago. There was a lot of playing, and you know, it's a pretty like rough program. You know, lots of fun, but just, you know, you're doing mornings sessions, afternoon and evening rehearsals, and I ended up getting tendonitis in my my right wrist, and that really held me back for a couple months after the summer was over. And had I known about injury prevention at the time, I think it would have helped me along the way. So please do take care of your bodies. You
Yes.
only have one.
This is so important. I'm glad you mentioned that, Brandon, because it's true. And the reality too is like if you already feel a little bit of pain when you're in your 20s, it's only going to get worse when you're in your 30s and 40s if you're still playing at that point. So yeah, really it's so easy to get caught up in, oh, I have so much practicing to do, I'll deal with it later. But when your body is saying I'm hurting is something that's when you have to stop and really evaluate, get the treatment, take care of yourself, because otherwise you might not have a career at all. In music, I mean, there's of course other things that you can do, but if you want performing to be a part of your career, it's really, really important. Yes, Janna.
Yeah, I think we need to think of ourselves more as athletes, and that we are in a training program, and that our training program has to be balanced,
Yeah.
and also include, you know, mental health. You're the mental health at performance mindset guru, Lara. So you can probably you give a lot more succinct advice, but yeah, and for myself, really understanding what I need as a person has really helped my you know, my creative life. You know, understanding that I you know, there's a funny meme going around that like basically we're just plants. You know, we're basically house plants. We need food, water, and sunshine every day. You know, and that's something for me, especially when I'm in the weeds with a big project or
Yeah.
deadlines, big performances. Is that the mental health piece is crucial, especially these days with all the things that are swirling around us, that we need to find those strategies and that support network around us, and that is just as important as your practice and your other prep.
Yes, 100%. While I have you, actually, Janna, one thing that I wanted to ask you, and it really is applicable to all of you, is of course, through your respective ensembles and the work that you're really doing a lot of social activism work as well, looking at helping people who are in disadvantaged areas get opportunities, feel connected, feel seen. Carson, in your case, of course, like thinking about sustainability and the future of our planet that we're very actively destroying. How do you sort of make connections, obviously way outside of the realm of music, right? You know, you all have boards of directors, of course, who are advising you. Like, how do you take those steps to link up your musical project with that social cause? Like, what advice would you give to somebody who is watching and is really inspired by what the three of you are doing and thinking, oh, you know, maybe I want to start a project around an issue that is special to me?
Well, I guess for myself, I looked around my community, and you know, one of our first projects with Allegra was building, working with a women's shelter to create a music therapy program, which is now up and running and completely you know, self-sufficient, which is wonderful. But I looked around, and I saw you know, these women that were living and working on the street and as sex workers, and they were my neighbors. I would walk past them on my way to the concert hall, and you know, there's very little separation between humans, and where we can end up. We're all we can all be in very vulnerable situations from time to time. And so it was something that I saw every day, and I couldn't stand anymore. And so then I reached out to people that were smarter than me, and people that were above me, people that knew a lot more than I did about those situations, that you know, like I said, that I saw every day. I was had been in school for a very long time. I lived in a sketch area of town. But I was like, why, how is their circumstance so different from mine? And, you know, I was someone that, grew up in poverty and in a very disadvantaged situation, and music was kind of my way out. And so I guess that was already something that was kind of inside me, waiting to be expressed. And so I guess for myself, like I said, it was the things that I saw every day and injustices that I couldn't stand anymore. But that also, you know, we have these seeds that are planted along our life experience, and I think it's important to follow those little breadcrumbs, their information, and that are actually, you know, possibly guiding us to something bigger, and that or stretching us. And we already have some capacity there for that, if we have those you know, intentions or prompts to act, I think.
Right. And when you say reaching out to people who, you know, were more involved in that community, or more, who knew more, is that like just cold calls, emails? Like, what were the steps?
Yeah, well, in this case, I was luckily connected with a wonderful organization called Music Heals, which they go into different community situations and work with them to assess their needs and to create a kind of customized music therapy program. Or
Okay.
so a good friend of mine, it was a coffee date, one of my 50 coffees, and that was actually a cold call. I said, you know, I love your organization, I love what you do, you tell me more about it. And then a couple months later, you know, an opportunity came up for us to collaborate on this, creating the music therapy program for the Wish Drop-In Center. So you just never know
Right.
when you have those coffee connections, or however they come about. And I mean, I guess someone said, we'll get to it in the Q&A, do those coffee things actually work out? Yeah, in a way they do. You know, I'll read a book and I'll reach out and I'll be like, I loved this book, I was really inspired by what you said. How can I be involved with your organization, or support what you do, or spread the word to my network? I've done that a number of times, and sometimes I don't hear back, but usually I do. And it's, if anything, it's just a wonderful human to human connection. Sometimes it results in more, but yeah, the cold call things, and I mean, I'm always terrified. I'm, you know, and at heart, I'm very much an introvert.
Yeah.
So it's out of my comfort zone, but that is one of the skills that I realized that if I actually want to put forward some of the ideas and things that I think I'd like to see in my community, I have to be brave
Yeah.
and put myself out there in these ways. And the more I do it, the easier it gets, because usually, you know, either you don't receive a response, or they're like, yeah, absolutely, like,
Right.
let's have a convo. So
And it's like you sort of hit the hammer of what Carson said too, is the way that you're reaching out. You're reaching out from a place of, I love what you do, how can I help? Not immediately, I need this thing from you. And it's genuine. It's genuine. You do love what they do, and you are excited to, again, nurture that relationship. Carson or Brandyn, was there anything you wanted to add in terms of making those external connections via cold call, email, you know, to support your cause outside of your existing musical network?
Yeah, Brandyn, do you want to go, or?
Yeah, I mean, I can briefly talk about like what Janna said. I think for me and for Obiora, community building has been very important, because we're trying to grow a new audience in classical music that hasn't been initiated to it. So we found ourselves really in, I think it was year one, connecting with the Maison d'Haïti, which is a cultural organization in Montreal North that that offers a lot of activities and events for the Haitian community. And you know, that community has a history of participation in classical music and intellectuals in general. And so that's been one way to collaborate, and more recently with different organizations. So I think, yeah, really going out there and saying, like, you have nothing to lose but everything to gain from from creating, from networking.
Worst thing that happens is they say no, right?
Yeah.
What's the, that's like your worst case scenario. Carson, do you want to add to that?
Yeah. Yeah, the one thing I would add is, so like, just for example, when I was trying to think about what it meant to be, or what it meant to operate more environmentally sustainably as a classical musician, my first like task was, before I called anybody or had any further conversations, was to like think about, like, to actually do some work, do some reading, like try and educate myself as best as I could on the kind of sustainability landscape in general, and like, what are other organizations doing? Are these things happening? Are these conversations happening? Short answer is no, at least in Canada. And actually like building some kind of idea for myself of what I think this could be, so that when I then go and speak to somebody who's actually in that field, I'm not just going to them saying, okay, tell me the stuff. I'm
Right.
going to them saying, okay, so based on what I think, this is what I think I should be doing. These are my thoughts. These are my blind spots. What's your input? Like inviting somebody to have a conversation with you, but also doing some work to go towards them, so that you're not just kind of saying,
Right.
tell me stuff. I think that's an approach that probably always should be avoided. So.
Well, and I think that's true of many social causes these days, is like, educate yourself before you start asking the questions. You're going to be wrong about a lot of things in your education process, but if you don't start with that baseline, it's really hard. People will feel that you haven't invested your time and energy into whatever it is that you're asking them for. This is all really fantastic. I could talk to the three of you for 3 hours. We're hitting about 11 o'clock, and I see we're getting some like a juicy number of questions in our Q&A. I want to make sure we have time for them. So I just want to do our sort of rapid fire 2 questions that we're going to be asking all of our roundtable panelists. And this is just, again, in the spirit of this conference, we want to be normalizing more musical career paths and helping people figure out what their why is, like why be a musician? Why be in the music industry? Why do this when you're constantly told that it's a very difficult industry to work in? So the 2 questions I have for you, and Carson, since you were last to talk, I'll jump in with you. The first question is, why are you in the music industry? And the second question is your current definition of success in your life right now, so life and music, A, what is it? And B, is it different than what it was when you were, say, 18 or sort of embarking on your journey as a musician?
Okay. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak first so many times, because I get to take all the good answers. Okay, first question, why am I in the music industry? Because I love music. I mean, that list of things that we talked about, like, why else would you do this? It's like, not the money. It's not because I value getting like many hours of sleep at night. No, if I didn't actually like enjoy playing and really deeply believe that music has something to say to society, there is no way on earth I would do this if that was not the core of why I'm doing it. So that's my answer for that. Yeah, my definition of success is exactly the same. No, I'm joking. It's definitely not. My current definition of success is just simply to be sustainable, both personally and environmentally. And I'm finding that extremely difficult. And honestly, I feel like I'm failing in many ways to be on both of those accounts. It's like an extraordinarily difficult profession to make it work sustainably. I'm about to have a family, which I'm super excited about. I have lots of financial responsibilities. Sustainability is like very, very hard to come by in the music industry. So I'm trying to create that. I'm also open to potentially not finding that and doing something else. That's something that I would feel no shame or worry if that were to happen.
Right.
So sustainability is my goal.
Out of curiosity, what was your success definition when you were 18?
Oh, I was just going to go and like play piano concertos as fast as possible in as many places as possible.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Over to you, Brandyn. So same 2 questions. Why are you in the music industry / why are you a musician in this case? And what is your current definition of success? And is it different from when you were 18?
Yeah, so I guess I'm a musician because simply I love it. It's such a passion. When I was younger in high school, starting to learn all this, I was a very emotional kid, and I found that music allowed me to just like channel my emotional energy and express myself. And actually, after high school, I was considering going into science, and more specifically like physiotherapy or like sports therapy in some way. but I was like, why am I going to go through all of that? You know, the textbooks were way too expensive. I wasn't nearly as good as at the science courses I thought I was. Um, and so, yeah, I chose music because I didn't even realize all the wonderful opportunities that it was going to bring to me. But um, I really love collaborating with other people. You know, like it really does feel like a team when we all have different parts, but coming together and putting everything together to create this beautiful sound and this beautiful music. For me, there's no greater feeling. And success. Um, I would say right now I'm I'm still trying to um, come to terms with both my role as a musician and as an arts administrator, um, because you know when I was in music school, like I said earlier, like I didn't have the mind to start a business. For me, it was really just like I wanted to be a performer, and for me, that's what success really meant at the time. And now things have shifted to where, you know, developing all these different skills and not finding the same time that I once had to 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 practice or to keep doing auditions. And so I think things have shifted a lot, but I would say, um, obviously, I think life has a way of showing you what's really important, and it's like finding your purpose through all of this, you know, kind of stumbling along the way and, you know, having these detours. It's not going to be one sort of linear path like we're taught it should be.
Mhm.
And that's okay to kind of have these detours because that's what leads to growth.
Right.
So I would say like, yeah, I'm perfectly happy with what I'm doing. And yeah, and helping to inspire and being around all these wonderful people and learning and sharing. It's amazing.
So it sounds a bit, and I know this is the case for me too, that success is a much more well-rounded definition than it was when you were 18. There's more life factors kind of playing into it. Is that accurate?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, just recognizing that, you know, just doing one job is not necessarily the level of the one thing that's going to fulfill my whole life. Over to you, Janna, to wrap this up before we get to the Q&A. What are your answers to why you're in the music industry and what your definition of success is?
Yeah, I think why I'm in the music industry and why I've stayed in the music industry, because there have been times when I've considered leaving. I'm sure anyone that has put in their time has had similar experiences. But I think what keeps me coming back and sustains me within it is that music is such a vehicle for connection, and you know, that is something that intrinsically you know, we're wired for as humans. We don't even realize how much, I think, we need that connection, and how you know, it can be such a powerful tool for yeah, for change, and for growth within ourselves, and also within our larger communities. And so I think time and again I've seen that and experienced that, and that's what's like I said, sustained me in the music industry and continues to. So and then, yeah, my definition of success, similar to Carson, I was going to win all the competitions, play all the concertos,
As
and
fast as possible.
yeah.
1.5 times speed, the fastest Mendelssohn concerto you've ever heard.
Exactly. And so obviously I'm not doing that. But and it's fascinating because you know, I totally switched careers when I was 30. That's another story, but I was injured as a violinist and pivoted my career to conducting. So and then you have all these kind of being in a different stream, you're given all these you know, kind of differing views on what success as a conductor is, and so that is, I mean, it is something that I'm grappling with, kind of at a turning point in my career, as to which direction to take, and what ultimately I my definition of success is. And I think, I mean, something that's evolving for me, I guess, is being able to work with the people that I want to work with and create the kinds of things that I ultimately want to put out there, and rather than taking things that maybe fill me up less or even deplete me, just to pay the bills. So I guess that would be really a broad definition of success, but that would be my ultimate life goals, is to be able to create in the way that I want to create, alongside other like-minded wonderful creators and individuals.
Right. I think that's a beautiful sentiment. And I think you're also sort of further illustrating that definition of success might again be different again in 10 years. And like you said, having that flexibility and that open-mindedness to it may be changing because you're going to grow as a person, that's like the most beautiful thing in life. But I think we get scared of, oh, I set this goal when I was 18 and I haven't reached it, therefore I'm a failure. It's like, well, no, it's just the goal that you set was maybe not the one that you knew you needed to set yet, right? Like there's so much time to learn and to grow. And I certainly know when I look at my personal statements from when I was 18 to where I am now, it's like the complete opposite of what I thought I wanted, So I would say that's an important reminder for anybody watching. Just stay in touch with that side of yourself. Ask yourself that question every 6 months. Write down your answer, check in with your answer, and see, because it probably will change as things in your life change. So before we get to the Q&A, I just want to thank you all for being so open and beautifully vulnerable with those answers. I think that it will inspire a lot of our participants to think really hard about why they do what they do, and maybe what their longer term goals are in music. We have quite a few questions popping up in our Q&A, so I'm going to start jumping to those. We're going to try to answer as many as we can. All right, somebody asked, I think we answered the question about recommended to have coffee before you need something. How do you generate these opportunities organically? Do you find your contacts are interested in spending time with no immediate goal? I think we answered that. So basically, just to summarize what our panelists said, you want to go in, if you're cold calling somebody, with a genuine interest in what they're doing and not necessarily an immediate ask, and to see what you can also offer to them, understanding that it's a nurturing relationship that goes both ways. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. Okay, so panelists, just put up a hand, whoever wants to jump in and answer these questions. We have a question from somebody named Denise. Denise asks, how do you manage living expenses while trying to build a business? Carson, hand is up.
Well, there's a short answer and there's a long answer, but well, no, I rather than trying to give like an answer to the question, I can just sort of share because I'm currently kind of in that process, so I can tell you how I'm trying to manage living expenses. So I'm with there's a team of 5 of us. We're building an organization called Carleton Musique, which we envision as kind of a music service for the whole Gatineau Hills region. So presenting concerts, we are working on educational things that will hit a bunch of different sectors. So early childhood education, education for young musicians looking to be professionals, but looking at that avenue sort of differently than traditionally managed, and also looking at senior amateur education. There's a lot of interest in that, but no kind of place for that to happen here. And also a residency program that allows musicians to come here, spend time building artistic, creative projects. There's a lot of elements to it. So we're doing that. Finally, I've been running the concert series that I run for 10 years, and I'm finally able to pay myself a little bit to do that. So I work at the University of Ottawa as a collaborative pianist, or just a pianist who collaborates with people, with a ton of string players, woodwind players. I sometimes teach in the piano department. I coach chamber music. I do freelance gigs here and there. So basically, I just do a lot of stuff, and somehow in each day you sort of squeeze in a few minutes to work on it. So the short answer is it's super, super difficult and just eats up a lot of your time, and there is no easy way of doing that. I wish there was a more positive answer to that, but I really don't think there is.
I think it comes down to also prioritizing, like you said, right? It's like you do the things that pay the bills as long as you need to, and then you carve in the time. You say, I'm going to make the time to do to start building these other projects, because at some point it will pay off, but those early stages can be tricky. For anybody wondering, we've got a lot of similar questions on this topic, actually. The next roundtable this afternoon is very much on this topic. It's called How to Create Your Own Work and Fund Your Projects. So I would definitely recommend tuning into that one this afternoon if these are questions that you have. Brandyn or Janna, did either of you do anything like non-musical jobs at any point to support yourself?
I did, yeah. I'm actually a certified yoga instructor. So I did that I was in Vancouver, which is like the yoga capital of the world. I mean, there was part of that was a practical thing. As I mentioned, I had a number of really severe injuries, and I had to figure out how to manage that. So I took yoga teacher training, but then it also ended up being kind of a fun, flexible thing that I could fit in around performing that actually was very nourishing. So I did, there was a couple of years where I did work at a yoga studio and teaching a bit. But there are lots of different like kind of pieces to the puzzle that, have teaching work, contracted work, your own work, and then sometimes outside of the industry completely. And actually, I did find that time away from the industry, for a few hours a week, that was also very healthy, to work in a very different environment that had a very different kind of, in a lot of ways, a very different focus. So,
Right.
and, now I don't have to do that, but that was, and sometimes you have to do those things to facilitate the bigger picture. And that's
Right.
nothing to be ashamed of.
I'm very glad you said that. I'm also going to say that tomorrow we have a talk called Multidisciplinary Careers, which is just about this as well. People who have musical careers, and then the other thing they do is completely unrelated to music. Again, this is something in school that I think I certainly was like crippled by this feeling of, oh, if I'm also doing something else, I have failed. Here to tell you, and all these people in these lovely squares with me, I know will agree that that is not the case. If you are able to fund your projects, however you fund them, however you live your life, if you are living by your ideals, you're being creative, you're doing the things you want to do, you are successful. So that is a really important reminder. Excellent question. Thank you very much for that one, Denise. We have an anonymous question, I think, that will be very interesting. I think, Brandyn, you could probably speak to this one. What are the benefits of being a freelance musician versus being in an organization? Would you change your career path? So everyone here, I would say, is more on the freelance portfolio career side of things and less on the, say, full-time orchestra side of things. So Brandyn, do you have thoughts on that?
I would say number one, as a freelancer, you can go on vacation anytime you want. A couple weeks of no work. All right, let me just go to down south somewhere. Kidding aside, I think being a freelancer offers a lot of flexibility in terms of scheduling. You can, you're not limited to a 9 to 5, and so there is more time to do other things. Downside is that there isn't, financially, it's a lot harder to overcome when you don't have gigs coming in. It's very kind of like, it is definitely hard to have that balance. For me personally, I'm blessed to be freelancing with the different orchestras like the OSM, even NACO sometimes, doing some of the film concerts in the Montreal area. And so I'm able to kind of to get by, and in the times that I'm not working, I'm able to kind of develop things further with Obiora. So yeah, I think it really does offer one to have a more balanced life in the end. Because it's kind of hard because sometimes like weekends we're working, and then like all of my other friends who have 9 to 5 jobs are like, oh, let's do something. Like, sorry, I can't. I have concerts for the next 3 days.
Yeah, it's tricky, and I will say, I think a lot of it too, to answer this anonymous question. I think a lot of it too depends on your life circumstance, honestly. Like some people have partners who have super stable jobs, and that means that they can afford to be more creative and take more risk that way. Or some people, you know, generational wealth is a factor. So I think it's just understanding that different people have different situations, and you have to go with your gut on what works best for you. Suffice to say, with the music industry, I mean, you can have a full-time organizational job like with anything that ends. And then all of a sudden you have no work and you've done that one thing for a long time and you don't have that network. So one of the assets to being a freelancer, and I know I found this in the pandemic, obviously it was very hard, but having many different avenues of income was actually really helpful because it wasn't like one organization fully stopped. And then I had nothing. It's like, you know, personally for me, I teach, I speak, I coach, I play, I do recordings, I do all sorts of things. So having those different avenues for income has actually been very helpful. And if an organization ends up, say one orchestra ends up struggling, if that's only 10% of your work, it's a little easier to recover than if that's 90% or 100% of your work. So I think pros and cons to both, and it really depends like who you are and what your circumstances. Janna, I see a hand up.
Yeah, well, just to add to that, exactly. I think that if you, even if you have an orchestral position, I think you should still be building out your skills in other areas because, I mean, as we've seen, the orchestral world is not as stable as perhaps it used to be, and you may not be able to sustain yourself just on an orchestral salary anyway. So a lot of my colleagues work in a combination. They have their main a job in an orchestra, and then they also teach, or they also freelance, they also record. I think that and like you said, when there's perhaps a downturn or something, you have these other skill sets that you can turn to and that you can build on, and that you can, same thing, when as soon as COVID happened, I built out my teaching practice and my consulting practice with our arts organizations. So even, and I think it's not so much either or anymore, like that you have an orchestral job and that's what you'll have forever. But I think at the same time, you need to be building out something of your own that you do have control over.
Yes, that's great. Carson, did you want to add something?
Yeah, just, I mean, to sort of like add to that, it's like if you look at the direction that things are going, and also I know a lot of our listeners today are students, like the likelihood is that you will be freelancers. So
yeah.
Whether you want to be or not is probably not the question. It's not like most people don't have the luxury of being like, I think I'll be a freelancer, or I think I'll do this. Like there are fewer and fewer tenured orchestral jobs. There are few to almost no university tenured jobs. Like the whole industry is going towards part-time gig work. So that basically, like, you will be a freelancer. So figure out what that's going to look like for you.
Exactly. I'm gonna just answer another question in the Q&A is, do you need a music degree to become a freelancer? I think I can take this one. Basically, no, you do not. To perform, nobody ever checks, or to take an audition, nobody really checks whether or not you went to school. There's lots of great things you learn in school, and access to lessons and chamber music skills and things that you will get out of a music degree, but technically, no, you do not need a university degree to become a freelancer. Let's grab another question here. So let's see. There's so many good ones. I'm trying to pick the ones that are most. Okay. So we have a question from Barrett, and we've got a lot of bassists here. So Brandyn, you brought out a good crew of double bassists who are at this session. I see a few people asking questions as bassists. Great question from Barrett. I am graduating high school and a bassist interested in performance and gigs. As a young performer, are there a few things I can do at every single gig to additionally further my career? Anybody want to grab that one?
I mean, I can go for it. And like, really great for the question. Happy to hear the question. I would say there are kind of some key pillars that you want to keep in mind as you're entering the freelance world. And obviously, as a as a musician, you know, you want to have your technique down, whether that's intonation, knowledge of the different styles of music, articulation, all these things that we can talk about, like that has to be um, key, like first and foremost. But then also in terms of like what we mentioned before, like having professionalism, showing up prepared, on time also helps. Um, and also the personality you bring, because I know so many people who are phenomenal players, they win auditions, they start working for a few months, they don't get the job, not because they weren't good players, it's just that the personality didn't fit, or um, it's a lot of it's about creating connections, right? So who you are as a person, unfortunately, does determine if you'll be called again or if you'll maintain a job. Um, and so, yeah, so making sure that, especially as a bass player, you know, we are the fundamental of the orchestra. And so making sure that we are like rock steady, and providing that foundation on which the orchestra stands is really important.
I would add too, I think that's all great advice. I know for me in my career, a thank you note goes a really long way. Gratitude goes a really long way. If somebody's given you an opportunity, especially the first time, say you play with an orchestra, the personnel manager contacts you to play with them. Afterwards, write them a thank you note and say, this was an amazing experience. I really enjoyed it. You know, thank you for being so welcoming, for, you know, sending us all the information to be in the right place at the right time. It was such a great experience. I look forward to hopefully getting to play with you again in the future. People remember that sort of thing. Or, you know, thank you for including me in your concert series, Carson. I really love what you're doing with, you know, the with in terms of environmental sustainability. I would love to collaborate again in the future. That sort of thing, people will remember you. Just small thank yous, being a team player, being really supportive of your colleagues. I think that sort of thing really stands out. I'm gonna choose one final question. Thank you all. I'm sorry we can't answer every single one of these questions, but I have a question here from Michael. I am weeks from my graduation of my BA in music and performance and guitar. Congratulations. Mainly jazz, blues, rock focused. I find I have spurts of success, but cannot support myself fully on music. I'm 32 now with a child in the way. Congratulations. I've spread myself out into lessons. I'm very good at repair technician and playing live on sessions. I have website, Instagram, Facebook ads. How does a player get more work without having to literally beg, which sometimes it feels like you have to ride the border of doing? I'm located in Halifax. Anybody want to jump in on that question? Carson.
Sounds like you're a freelance musician. Congratulations. No, I mean, really, like that's like you're doing it. I just think it's really important to say that, like with the freelance thing, there is no shelf. Like there's no moment where like you hit the shelf and then you're like, great, I am here and I will never drop below this ever again, or whatever that means for you. It's just, that is part and parcel of the career, is the feeling of the up and down. And yeah, sometimes when you're in the down moments and you're like, okay, I don't know what's going to go on for the next 3 months. So like, is there something coming? Just knowing that like either it will or it won't, and whatever it does, you just have to sort of be comfortable with the instability. That is unfortunately like a major part of the career, is just the comfort with discomfort. So I don't know. I feel like that's an important thing to say, is like what you're doing very much looks like the career, and keep doing it. And if you love it, then you'll keep going with it. And if you don't, then you won't. I think I don't want to sugarcoat that answer.
I will add to, I know, and I talk about this a lot with my students, is you really have to actively put yourself out there. Like, I think a lot of times we hope that people will notice us through networking or social media, but you have to remember that people have a kabillion things going on in their lives and they're not paying attention to most of what they see. So if you're looking for a particular opportunity somewhere, like a particular festival, and you're going to say, like, in the next 3 years, I want to get a slot at this festival, you need an action plan to actually do that. So, you know, what am I sending them in terms of a press kit? What am I, you know, how am I reaching out? Am I following up with an email after 3 weeks? Am I going to call somebody? Like, actually giving them a concrete proposal of, I have this concert idea. This is what I would present. Might you be interested in presenting it? As opposed to like, I am a performer. Here's all my video. You make the next step. Like, you have to make it as easy as possible for people to want to hire you. Like, they shouldn't have to do the work. You should be the one putting forward that program, that press kit, the photos, the recordings, and saying, hey, I would love to be a part of your festival. When can we make this happen? What can I offer you? Yeah, Janna.
Yeah, all of that. That's brilliant. I would maybe just to add from my experience, when I was really in the early stages of building my career, and I just really needed some stability. I focused on teaching to give me that stability to just be able to, so I could know that I could pay the bills, or if there's something like that, the repair work or something that can give you kind of that peace of mind, because if you'll really struggle to be creative and build a network if you're feeling frantic. And so if you can do something like that to kind of stabilize things a little bit and then build from that foundation, that's what I had to do just for but everybody's path is different. But for myself, I needed to know that I could feed myself and pay my rent every month. And I needed to find something to do that. And then I could add to that. And then I eventually, I had to scale back on that aspect because other areas were building and growing. And then, so that to make space. So that was something that I had to do, if that's at all helpful.
That is, I know, extremely helpful to a lot of people. We have 1 minute left in our session. I noticed somebody, we have a question from Olan. I am 17 and about to graduate high school, be starting music school for drums next year. Awesome. What can I be doing now to prepare for my career? Well, step number 1, you're here. That's awesome. And just basically taking there's so many free resources out there. Listen to everything you can, watch everything you can, just absorb and be a sponge. Because I think, and sort of the whole idea behind this conversation is you will learn a lot of amazing things in school. A music degree is a wonderful thing, but so much of what you do learn in this industry happens on the job as part of your life experience. And so any resources, podcasts, conversations like these that you can listen to and start thinking about these topics of, what do I want to do? Why do I want to do it? What I want my career to look like. The earlier that you can get into those good habits, the more prepared that you're going to be for success in this industry. So to wrap up, an enormous thank you to Carson, to Brandyn, to Janna for your absolutely amazing wisdom and expertise. I know that you have inspired a lot of people, including myself today. We really, really appreciate your generosity with your time. Thanks to everybody for your wonderful questions. I'm sorry that we couldn't get to every single one of them, but we do have a virtual meet and greet happening at 4 p.m. EST later today. I think Carson and Janna will be able to join us for that one, as well as some of the panelists from our other workshops today. And that's an actual Zoom meeting. So there'll be breakout rooms and you'll have a chance to actually talk very directly with any of our panelists if you have questions about their particular experiences or paths. So that link will be sent out as a different link later on today if you haven't already received it. Make sure that you come and check out the rest of our schedule. Our next workshop is at 12:30 EST. It's called Finding Your Artistic Voice. So that is all about figuring out what your why is and what you want in music. This afternoon, we have a roundtable called How to Create Your Own Work and Fund Your Projects. A lot of the questions in the Q&A were about that. So please do check in with that one if you had questions about those topics. And then finally, our virtual meet and greet at 4, which again is not a webinar. It's a meeting and a chance for you to really actually chat on video with our wonderful panelists. So thank you again so much. This has been a fantastic opening for us to this event this weekend. And I look forward to seeing many of you at 12:30 for our next workshop. Thanks to our panelists. We really, really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Yeah,
Take care,
awesome.
everybody.
Thanks.
Stay warm.
Oh.